A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. That bomb has more power than 20,000 tons of TNT.
Since 1939, as an unstoppable German war machine campaigns throughout Europe, slowly conquering one country after another, intelligence of a Nazi plot to develop a weapon of mass destruction took surface. German chemists have discovered that through the bombardment of uranium, a radioactive element with neutrons, a process called nuclear fission occurs, which releases massive amounts of energy, big enough to fuel power for entire communities. Fearing Nazi Germany's ability to produce the first nuclear bomb, the United States started its own program. In late 1941, however, mounting pressure to beat the Germans to the bomb led to a joint British-American program, codenamed the Manhattan Project. Led by famous German physicists Robert J. Oppenheimer and General Leslie R. Groves, the Manhattan Project recruited top scientists, engineers, and mathematicians from across the United States and Europe. With the program underway, fears that the Manhattan Project would draw in German and Soviet spies, hoping to infiltrate and steal the United States' nuclear secrets. However, the name Manhattan Project was only a cover to elude spies to Manhattan. The actual location of the project comprised of three key areas: Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where uranium was produced, Hanford, Washington, where plutonium was formed, and finally Los Alamos, the building and testing site for the bombs. In the morning of July 16, 1945, the Manhattan Project successfully tested the first atomic bomb in Alamogordo, New Mexico. The bomb produced a mushroom cloud reaching 40,000 feet while spreading destruction on a scale equivalent to 20,000 tons of TNT. With this extraordinary landmark, the United States made history by achieving the world's first successful nuclear weapons test. The United States moved on to start the production of the atomic bombs, Little Boy and Fat Man. These bombs would be secretly stored and ready to be deployed on an American B-29 bomber. The Americans was now the only country in possession of a bomb capable of unrivaled destruction. With nuclear weapons in their arsenal, the question for the United States was when to use the bomb. Nazi Germany had already surrendered in May 1945, leaving only the Japanese Empire to be dealt with. The Pacific campaign against Japan had been a long and costly process. The brutality seen in Okinawa and Iwo Jima gave insight to the hell that would ensue if a mainland invasion of Japan had occurred. In fact, the United States had a plan in place dubbed Operation Downfall, which laid out the full-scale invasion of Japan, where in terms of U.S. casualties, the Kyushu Islands alone was estimated to total approximately 280,000 American lives. Military analysts at the time predicted that the operation would result in the deaths of millions of untold American and Japanese. Japan, as seen from its military generals at the time, showed no signs of surrender by publicly calling civilians to arms in order to defend the mainland. The issue at hand was whether to deploy and sacrifice millions of American lives or to cohesively drop a weapon capable of effectively ending the conflict between the Japanese and the United States, where Harry S. Truman, the president at the time, decided to drop the bomb in order to ensure the safety of both the Japanese and the Americans, and to end years of war with Japan for good. His options were limited, either to sacrifice hundreds of thousands of Japanese lives to end the war quickly, or to continue with full-scale invasion, resulting in untold millions of potential casualties. Not only were the overall casualties an underlying factor for the dropping of the atomic bomb, but in terms of money, the atomic bomb proved to be more inexpensive than troop deployment as well. Other than the estimated casualty figures, if Operation Downfall had ensued, the droppings of the atomic bombs on Japan was also the more logical economic choice. In estimation, the economic cost of carrying out Operation Downfall can be summed up by calculating the amount of potential numerous resources. For example, this includes having to utilize 324,000 vehicles, hundreds of thousands of troops, and organizing the Navy and Air Force. From the United States' perspective, the cost of World War II was already approximately $280 billion by mid-1945. In modern-day standards, this amount of money equates to $5 trillion. Thus, if Operation Downfall was to be carried out, it would have prolonged the war and cost the United States additional billions of dollars. The atomic bomb was a sound solution to these economic drawbacks. Was it worth spending hundreds of billions of dollars to carry out Operation Downfall, or drop the nuclear bombs with only a minor relative cost of $2 billion with virtually zero American casualties? Relations with the Soviet Union had deteriorated drastically since Germany's surrender in May 1945. The Soviet outrage and distrust towards the United States for developing an atomic bomb in secret has weakened the partnership that existed during the war. Furthermore, the United States' anti-communist sentiment contributed to the already existing distrust with the Soviets. When the Soviet Union declared war on Japan in August, they immediately went out to invade Manchuria and Korea. The United States interpreted this as increased communist expansion. Meanwhile, time was being wasted fighting a bloody and relentless Japanese military. Since Germany's surrender, the Soviet Union maintained and built spheres of influence and control over all of Eastern Europe by establishing communist puppet governments. While the Red Army closed in, the West just stood and watched. The Russians' push to the then Japanese-controlled country of Korea demonstrated that they were moving even closer into Japan. For the United States and President Truman, time was running out. To prolong the war and let the Russians gain any more territory and influence in the region was just unacceptable. Japan was not to fall under Soviet influence. Therefore, this set the stage for the United States to demand immediate Japanese surrender, or deal with the nuclear option where in the end, nuclear means had to be utilized to effectively call an end to the war for good. Was the United States justified in using the nuclear option against Japan? Was it worth saving millions of both American and Japanese lives by dropping the bombs? Was it worth saving countless resources from an already costly war? Or was it worth giving up Japan to communist influence? Today's Japan is a thriving economic powerhouse, due in part to the U.S. reconstruction efforts after the war. Would this same Japan exist today had the war prolonged without the use of the bombs and gone to full-out invasion, which would have wasted countless lives and resources? This isn't a matter of debate over the morality of the use. This was simply the best solution the United States had in the dilemma it was presented for both the American people and in particular their families who had lost loved ones from the war. The United States took a decisive stand in human history by choosing the nuclear bombs for the better interest of both the Japanese and American people.